We'll begin this painting with a soupy mix of alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue. I have my colors here: Indian yellow, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue. You can see that they are very nice transparent colors. For accent, I may be using cadmium yellow medium, cadmium red medium, and Viridian green. I may or may not use those. So to begin this painting, we are going to establish a line. This is going to be sort of our sight of the horizon. And the recommendation is usually don't put it right in the middle. So we are going to go a little bit above the middle because this is going to be more of our reflections on water than sky. This particular purple, it's looking more blue, so I am going to just add a little bit more of the alizarin crimson to that purple. So you can get, the transparency is something that we will never recover if we cover it, but we can always get opacity on top. That's one reason why you will, if you see other of my videos, I always start with a very transparent wash and usually establish my darks first, because in acrylic as well as in oil it's always easier to get darker, but that brilliant transparency of these colors, you can never get it back once you use an opaque color. That's the reason. But you can do whatever you want. There's going to be a little, it's like a pine, I don't know what kind of tree that is, and another one here, and there's going to be another one kind of a little bit off, and we just insinuate these shapes, not the three of them not the same but very similar, and we're going to also mimic those shapes in the bottom because those are going to be reflections on water. So just see where they are, try to put the reflections should be darker. Things are usually reflected darker than the object they are reflecting. So I'm just trying to make a little bit of a darker color. At this point, I really don't mind much about the specific. It is a little darker, it's still transparent, which is what I want. And that's basically going to be, this is like a jetty at the bottom of the pier, at the end of a pier. And why not? I did put the horizon line here, but let's just make a very light wash with a distant skyline of what is sort of a city. And that's going to be, the water is going to be entering that way. So this is all going to be water with reflections from the sky. That's basically, it's a simple composition. I hope that I can finish before the hour. I realize that a lot of people want to see from the beginning to the end these descriptions of or these images that I'm painting. They want to be able to see them from beginning to end. So if I take longer time, usually people don't really like that too much. So that's what we're going to be doing. All right, so right now the darks are very well established, so I am going to make sure that I clean the brush, wipe the brush. It's a brush that's large for the size of the canvas. I am using today a 9x12. I like to do these demos with 8x10, but I don't have any more 8x10s, and I wanted to get another demo. So I'm using 9x12. Because I'm going to establish a little bit of the light color of the sky and it's blue, I don't need to make sure that this is quite clean. If I was going to use orange, I would make sure that it's cleaner. So we're introducing white and blue. For now, it's a little tiny bit of blue with white. The sky is the lightest area. And so the sky is going to be really determining a bit of this mood of this painting. And I want it to be just a tiny bit darker. Although acrylics dry dark, I realized that some of my demo paintings, after a while, they really look very dark. So be careful not to use too dark. I'm just darkening it just slightly. And in here, we're going to just play around with this, making it look like it's a sort of the skyline of a city in the back, just by adding some vertical strokes. You can make it look like there's buildings in there, and sometimes there's rooftops, or oftentimes you also have some skyline. So I'm just shaping in here some of these areas, which is going to be in these gorgeous, it's going to be, well, if you saw the video, the YouTube video, once I finish this painting and I know how it's going to come out, you will see that there is it's a sunrise, but some people actually see this image more like a sunset. So that's fine. Whichever you end up doing, it's going to be a sky that has blue and orange. So we have to be careful about applying the blue and the orange. We need to make sure the blue is completely dry. So I'm just establishing these areas where we can see more of the blue. And I cannot show you what exactly I am painting because I haven't painted it yet. So bear with me. I hope that you can see this sort of the horizon line, and very vaguely in the back we are seeing sort of some sort of a skyline of an imaginary cityscape. You can make it more like a mountain, or it could look more, I mean, it's vague. I don't want to define it too much. Okay. Now around the trees, or to shape the trees, I'm sorry about the sound with my chair. I'm a bit far from the painting and trying not to get into the view of what you are seeing me painting. So again, ultramarine blue and titanium white. I did not put titanium white in this palette that I'm showing you in the left, but it's titanium white, what I'm using. All right, so there's gonna be blue that's sort of peeking through here. And by adding some of these, now because titanium white is opaque, I can go now on top of these areas that we painted and sort of make it look like treetops by just painting the sky around it. And the treetops are, you know, different, and they're not symmetric, so it's nice to let the brush tell you sort of what the shape is going to be. And I often leave these final trees very transparent. It really depends how they are at the end. I may come back with some other, you know, more opaque paint, but you know, we can see the sky sort of trickling in between those leaves of these trees. And that's basically, there's gonna be a line here of blue, another line of blue coming here, and then the rest of it, it's very, very orangey because it was a nice sunrise by the water. I did take this photo. It was around 5:30 a.m. on a summer day in 2020. And always, you know, you can paint from photographs, and I'm not copying the photographs. That's why I don't want to show you the photo. I'm just drawing inspiration from the photograph, the general idea of the light and the shapes that I'm seeing. That's why I don't like to show the photo. I think it's easier probably for you if you want to start trying painting to just follow some of these. I don't have rules, but some of my recommendations for how am I doing it. So again, I am shaping the tree tops with the blue of the sky. And I haven't changed that blue of the sky. It's not a big area of sky that we have here. Okay, this could be, now my painting is telling me what to do. This could be another tiny tree top. Instead of having three, could be like, you know, a small one and then the other two larger. By the edges, don't do too many details. It just distracts the attention. You need to tell the viewer what they need to focus on. And then here, let's just make here like there were some other bushes by the end of the pier. And by the horizon, I've usually mentioned it has to be a bit lighter than at the horizon level. So that's usually what we do. Oh, I ate into that. I don't like that. I liked to see the, so this is just clean water with a clean brush. I'm just getting rid of that blue because I'm going to establish more of that transparent color in the back. It's like looking like it's going in there. So I did like that particular composition without having all the sky coming in here. So the sky just comes all the way here, and this is going to be part of a pier. And then we have reflections in the water. Now the water is going to be reflecting basically the orange color, because a lot of this is, I probably did too much of the blue, so that we're going to come back with more orangey and yellow colors in here. So there was really very little blue, perhaps, and the blue in the water has a tiny bit of Viridian green, which is this color here. So by adding a little bit of that Viridian green to the color of the sky, I am getting nice, it's a nice turquoise color. It's a little greener. It almost doesn't look like it. It's a little greener than what I had for the sky. And it was just a little piece in here that was sort of reflecting this sort of color. Okay, now we are going to get into the orange color of the sky. So to do that, I am going to either make sure that this brush is completely clean. So the first thing you do is take away the excess paint. And it's not really that much paint. I did not like doing that before. I felt like I was wasting pigment. It's worth doing it. It's really not that much paint. Then I'm off the camera. I'm just cleaning the brush by dunking it and pushing it into clean water. We need to make sure that all the blue is out, and then we come back and this is pretty clean. Let's see if that's true. So in an other area of clean, I just don't want to get any blue with that nice light orange. There is a little bit of blue. So going back to the clean water that I have several buckets of water, and make sure that you, ooh, now you see what I did. It's good that you see me making mistakes. I was wiping it and I got into this blue. So water again. I could change brushes. That's another option. But in any case, when you are painting, if you leave acrylic paint on your brush, you ruin them. They dry very quickly, and then it's just plastic. This is clean. So I think it's good that you see me doing this. You're gonna have more time in your own hands when you do your paintings. Take your time. Now, this is Indian yellow, and there are several areas where it's a very nice, just very nice Indian yellow. It's very transparent, as you see. So I'm just going to establish some areas here of the Indian yellow. The sunrise was occurring right around here. And near the sunrise, this is a very nice golden color. And the idea of leaving a lot of these with a transparency is that it shows the brilliance of this color by also having the white canvas underneath. You can paint on a toned canvas, but for these examples, I'm doing the white canvas because I feel it's more generally used by people who are in training or who want to learn. And that's why I'm doing the white. And then the brilliance is gonna show. I am painting with natural light, and I did block the light in my window, but I can see that it's starting to get a little bit of a shadow. I'm sorry about that. Okay, a little bit of the alizarin crimson to create a nice orange color with that Indian yellow, and it should still be quite transparent, so it just has a little bit of the red hint of the red color, and we are just going to do a light wash in all of this area. We will be changing slightly. We will be adding some opaque colors on top, but for now we continue doing this very light color. Then it will be, I think, in this particular area is going to be a little bit lighter. So you see there's a bit more water. I'm using water. I'm not using any other media. It's just water with a transparent wash for the sky. And again in here, it gets to be a bit more rosy tone. So we're just gonna make that little rosy tone. I'm trying to avoid where I painted the blue. The blue had the opaque white. And if I paint orange on top of blue, it just looks dirty gray. And that's not the idea for the sky. So that's why I'm trying to avoid it. These areas definitely had some little hints of that transparent color. So with this transparent color right here, we are going to now try to establish a little bit more of pink color. In the area of the water, we basically have more of a pinkish color rather than these orangey colors. So let's go ahead and do the pinkish color. This pinkish color is going to be basically with alizarin crimson and with white. There's a little hint of the Indian yellow that we had before. So this color is just going to be very, very nice brushed on top of this area. So the transparency of the golden yellow still shows, but we are now getting more of this sort of a sunlit color. So again, it's a rosy color with alizarin crimson and the alizarin crimson and titanium white. And on top of that transparent orange with Indian yellow, it just brings a lot of shiny brilliance to this painting. I hope that's what I'm trying to achieve. I'm going to add a bit more of the white to make a bit lighter color on the sky in this particular area where we're going to have, and as you can see, because the paint is still slightly wet, I don't have much trouble in mixing a bit of these colors. This is going to be a very bright area, and the sunrise was occurring right there. So I need to establish a bit more of a rosy color with more red in some of these areas. Let's just use this same combination of the titanium white and it should be lighter. So it's the one that I was using that's lighter here. And this will be shaping some of these clouds that were here. Now the blue is underneath and I want to cover some of it, but not all of it, because there were some clouds and I just want to sort of start joining a little bit this particular image. And as you can see, because it's still wet, I can move this paint, these colors around. Again, more of the rosy color that is light. It's light. It doesn't have to be all exactly the same. It's actually not bad sometimes to have brush strokes that, you know, they convey the sense of depth by having different brush strokes with slightly different colors of different colors side by side. So we have more orangey and we have more reddish colors, and I hope this will eventually be a painting that shows that sensation of the sky during a nice, very nice sunrise. So there is sort of the same effect that I got here. It's going to be just slightly on this edge. So you can see that I use the brush different ways. I like the long handle brushes because I feel that by having the long handle brushes, I can pick them up in the back, and I like these angle brushes. All the descriptions of the brushes are going to be below in the description area of this video. I like to take care of my brushes. They are not expensive, but what I realize is that it's extremely, at least for me, it's very frustrating to paint with a brush that doesn't hold the shape, because then I cannot paint what I wanted. So in here, I want to get a little bit more of the yellow around this. I think the blue I'm looking at my photo reference, which I have tiny, so I don't go crazy with details. I think the blue are clouds and the orange is the sky. I think that's what it is. But sometimes what I say is, if you don't contextualize what you're painting, just paint what you are seeing. At the end, at least in my mind, it does look like what I wanted to. No, this is going to be a bit more red. So because this is a little bit more red, I am going to just add a little bit of the alizarin crimson to the mix that I had. I don't want to exaggerate too much, but in here we're going to have a reddish tone, and I might actually come back and punch with cadmium yellow, but for now I am using alizarin crimson, Indian yellow, and the titanium white. So these areas were definitely reflecting a bit brighter red. So I will be coming back with some of these. I might be coming back with some cadmium red, but I don't want to do it yet because cadmium red is very opaque. So now we have the sunrise sky. I hope that you're seeing that these look like trees, and there's going to be a jetty, the reflection of the trees, and then we're going to start making the colors of the water. So the colors of the water are going to have the same orange, but like I mentioned, the reflections are usually darker. So Indian yellow, alizarin crimson, I'm making this mix on top of what I had, and some areas have more Indian yellow, some others have more alizarin crimson. So I don't have exactly the same color in all of this area. And I am going to just brush it slightly. This is a good base color for the water, and I'm going to come back with some darker areas of reflections in the water and then lighter areas. There is a definite lighter area around here where this is reflecting, and you can see that I used the color that I had for the sky. I mean, I have several colors for the sky now. So there are some areas here that should reflect what is on top. So I need to make sure that whatever I'm painting below it's going to read correctly with what I'm painting above. And that far away area is not going to reflect much. So I just need to make sure that that's going to be a little lighter. So as you can see, I'm just adding, without mixing completely, I'm just adding some brush strokes that are horizontal. And a lot of this is reflecting that color of the sky, but some other areas are going to have other accents of color. So just bear with me, and you can do all completely like I'm doing. You can see I'm sort of cleaning the brush on my canvas, and here we have an area. This is fun to paint. So we're gonna get white and that same kind of pinky rosy color, and we are going to start sort of painting what the reflection of the water would be doing with these trees. So tree tops. So we have an area that is vertical, and although the trees we see through the blue, this is reflecting the sky above, and the sky above was definitely more rosy yellow. So to do this effects of water, it's just sort of painting a little bit on the area that we painted before, and just I think this tree became more triangular, so we just need to make sure that this reflection is going to be looking a bit more like what, a little bit. I mean, it doesn't have to really be like a mirror. It's just giving the impression. And I noticed sometimes this was something that happened to me, that just by adding some areas where you leave like dark around, it does give a very good impression of water that's actually moving. And it's just fun to paint. Okay, so in here we decided to make a little bit of a tree and then another one. So again, not very well mixed in the brush. We got areas with white and areas with the pinkish color, and we're just establishing sort of the idea that this is the reflection of water. And some of these reflections are also going to have a bit of blue. So I will wait. I mean, acrylic paints dry fast. That's a good thing about acrylics, and that's why I venture to do acrylics in these demos, because it's not like oils that I would have to wait sometimes until they are completely dry. So let's just make some fun reflections here in the water. And that sort of give the idea that we have here a blurred reflection of the treetops. So more or less, you have to see if it's coinciding a bit with what we are painting above. Now, on this area, it does get a lot wider. So I'm just going to venture and use straight white. Could be too much, but maybe it's going to mix with what I have underneath, including a little bit of that blue. And I'm just going to go, up and down. This was definitely very, very light. Of course, don't trust photos completely, because sometimes with photos, what happens is that it makes things very flat. Like the darks are too dark, and the clear color is too light, sometimes too white. So it's just make sure that you don't just use completely white, even if you're seeing white. I think it's better to avoid having that particular white, completely white. So with that said, here was too white. So I'm just using some of the colors that I have that have more of the alizarin crimson or more of the Indian yellow in one side, alizarin crimson on the other. And as you go back, it should be definitely lighter. So I'm again using here more of the white. It should be much lighter in the horizon for both the land and also the water. The water should be straight, horizontal. The water doesn't go up or down, it goes horizontal. And if you need a ruler, just feel free to use a ruler. I like to use my hand, and so of course I am a bit bent on painting this painting, so I'm not straightforward onto the canvas. So sometimes what I've seen is that I think I'm painting a straight line, and I'm not. But if just feel free to use your ruler if you need to. I think it needs a little bit more of the yellow. It's the Indian yellow. I have not introduced cadmium yellow, and I don't know if I am going to introduce cadmium yellow. All right, so now that we have established more or less, you can see how the water you paint like this horizontal. I think I just need to establish a bit in here. So what I'm doing, I'm just taking all the pile that I had with the nice rosy color, or orange, because it does have Indian yellow, although the alizarin crimson and white definitely predominate. I'm just going to make sure this reflection with blue reads correctly in terms of the transition between the colors. I don't want to make too strong of a transition. One thing I think it's that perhaps this is the Atlantic, so it's wavy. I think this blue has to be a little lighter, and that's going to look a bit better. So what I've been doing is just painting on top of where I had before. You can see that, you know, where I had the dark areas, I'm just painting lighter areas, and where I had the lighter areas, I'm painting darker areas to give the impression of waves and movement. Okay, for the land in the back, I don't want to do too much, and I don't want to do too much in this area either. So let's tackle now the sunrise, which is the most challenging for me. And let me see if I can do it in a way that I'm cleaning the brush, taking the excess paint, dunking it into the water, and then cleaning it again in an area of the paper towel that is clean. Okay, so what I am going to do is I am going to establish where that very bright area is. And that's basically in this area of the horizon. I can see the sun's rising here, and it creates reflections around here. So the trick that I'm going to show you, let's see if it works. I'm going to use a clean, smaller brush and just a tiny bit of the cadmium yellow. It's a medium, and it's actually a hue. It's not a real color, but it does pack a punch. That's it. So we are going to let it dry, and then we're going to do a little bit more on top of it to put the yellow and then white to indicate that's actually where the sunrise was happening. Okay, do I want to use a little bit of this red? That would actually create a more of an accent. So if I think I need to put more of an accent of a red, what I could do is just lightly brush it where I had the other salmon color with the same brush, and just in some of these areas very slightly come in here, because you don't want to exaggerate. It's a beautiful color, but you don't want to do too much of a color that may not read correctly. So there's some areas of brighter reddish color around where the reflection is going to be. And as you can see, I'm just lightly brushing, and what I did off camera was to put it in water so that it's a bit more diluted, and it's just a very, very matte light. I don't know if you can see the difference, but it's just a light touch of this cadmium red, not much. I don't want to do too much of this cadmium red. Now this one has more water than anything else, so that should do it. Clean the brush. You don't want your brush, I'm really sorry about the shadow. It's my shoulder and then the window, but there's no way I can do better. I'm so sorry. Anyway, I hope you're enjoying and that you enjoy this painting. I'm going to just establish a little bit again of the alizarin crimson, and with a tiny bit of the yellow, maybe a bit more of the yellow. So this is kind of orangey, and it's on top of where I had it before. So there's a little bit of the white in there, and I'm just going to brush gently here. I want to make it a bit more alizarin crimson color. So just slight brush on the right, because you know this is where it's getting a little bit of that sunrise color. So just on top or on some areas, it just gives a little bit of volume, not too much. And I'm just going for straight Indian yellow in here. You don't want to do it that dramatic, so just brush it slightly. I think it actually looks better with the red, with the orangey. You can experiment. You can see what you want your effect to be. I want to leave that transparency of these trees. More of the alizarin crimson with the Indian yellow in this area. It's a kind of a rosy area, but it just gives a nice impression of that sunrise. And I want to keep the shadows, the reflections in the water a little bit darker. So these have a bit of that shiny color from the sunrise in some areas. Don't do too much. Maybe I am doing too much. And then in this area here, around where the sunrise is, there's some hints of this transparent, nice transparent color. And this is where we can start making sure that we establish, do we want this to look like a city, or do we want this to look more like a park? I am going for city view, and because there's going to be the very bright area in there, I'm just adding this color in the back. As we go to the sides, we are going to use a little bit more of a bluish color. So I am, sorry, I hit the camera. I'm just washing the brush again and using the colors that I had for the sky, just slightly. I'm just going to work a little bit with a little bit more blue and a little bit of the reddish color. So it has to be light but darker, yes, darker than the sky. I think I'm going to add just a little bit more of the red. A nice purple might look better for the back. And then it's just making some marks that tell me that there's some buildings in there. And again, it's a light purple color, probably more purple than violet. What I mean by that is more of the alizarin crimson than the ultramarine blue. Okay, and that is, in a photograph, you often will have very dark background in your photographs. And to give the impression of distance, you need to make them lighter than what the photograph is showing. Because there's, in real life, you don't realize that when you take the photo, but in real life, it is lighter in the back. And also it's less defined in terms of what we are seeing. So I'm just trying to make several marks that could indicate there's some land in the back. Like sort of building type of marks. It's and this can be established again with a little bit of the, I think I went too dark. You probably are already noticing that. So with the lighter color, I'm just going to brush it and try to make it less defined. It's still showing the darker purple in the back, but it's now not as dark, which is what we need. And especially on the bottom, we need to make sure that things are anchored. So usually the bottom of buildings, the bottom of trees are darker than the rest. But this was a bit too dark in my opinion. Okay, so what we are going to do is take some of that color that we had that was like the orange color with the blue, so that I can just brush slightly on here. As you can see, I'm not mixing completely, but it's giving the impression of some different volume, different lights in different areas of this background skyline, city line, skyline. Okay, this is a bit too dark, so we will be making it lighter, and I'm just dunking the brush in the water. This area is difficult for me to understand what exactly I did. So I think we need to paint in on top of these some sort of a tree. So let's use the same idea of the alizarin crimson, the Indian yellow, and we are going to very lightly, we're just, it's gonna be like a tree that comes this way and some land in there. And without washing my brush, I'm just adding some of that original purple that we had, so that I can sort of make this sort of look like there's something that is what is being reflected in here. Okay. And we're just establishing, this is a jetty, so we're just establishing a little bit that there's something in there. I don't want to be too specific with this area. All right, so we have a sunrise. The dark in the back should be lighter, that skyline. And then we do have these trees in here. I probably will make a little darker these reflections, but not too much more. And what we're going to be working now, because I just noticed that, is just to make that lighter. And so to do that, in the dirty brush, so that had the color, the kind of orangey color, and I'm going over the blue color that I had here. So it's a dirty gray, and I think I just did not want to have it. It's probably too light. So just add a little bit of that same purple color we had originally to that dirty gray, and just there. Just establish a bit more of the skyline in a lighter color. It's a gray color, nondescript, sort of an ugly color by its own, but by having a color that's muted, we call it muted because it doesn't really have that much punch, by having it near the area where we're gonna have the sunrise, it will make the colors of the sunrise nicer. So I'm just trying to make here some lines that would insinuate there's some buildings in there, and we can consider if we should or should not. So horizontal line for the area where the water is, and we're gonna come back and set up a little bit more of this water area in a lighter color. I don't like that as dark. Okay, I think this is not looking bad. It's a very nondescript, but I think it does look like a city. So what do I need now? I need to clean my brush, make sure that it's clean, and we are going to add cadmium yellow. And you have to be very precise. It's gonna be like in the middle of the cadmium red, and there's some cadmium yellow reflections in here. So this is coming from this nice sunrise. And this cadmium yellow, I basically just see it around this area here. I don't see any cadmium yellow coming into the rest of the painting. So I'm just slightly brushing it to make sure this is the point of lightest light. Okay. And that's just with the other side of the brush, I'm just making sure that this sunrise is gonna look okay. Now there is, I'm gonna use the cadmium yellow I have with the mix of the alizarin crimson and Indian yellow for this area here. I don't want to use the orange with cadmium red. I want to use it with the Indian yellow because it is a nice and orange, but not as prominent as if I were to use cadmium red and cadmium yellow. So it's cadmium yellow with the mix that I had used here for the trees. That's what I am using here. That's what you can use. And if you have a set of acrylics where you have tons of different colors, you don't need to mix. Just, choose the one that you think it's reading better. Don't worry about choosing the wrong one because it's really easy, as you have seen me doing. It's not that difficult to correct colors. Just test it. Put a little bit on your canvas. And ultimately, if you don't like your painting, you can always paint on top another painting. But what you should realize is I paint very light, not very thick paint. The thick paint comes at the end. So don't be tempted or try to avoid being tempted to paint very thick from the beginning. All right, I think it's nice, even though I don't really see it in the photo. It would be nice to add some of this color here and make it a little bit more in harmony with the colors that I had here. Okay, and now what I am going to do is just with the same brush a little tiny bit of the titanium white just in the middle of that sunrise. I think that's all. It needs to really feel that this is the area of lightest reflection. Now, with the same brush, I did mention I don't really like this line. I think it's too much on my face. So I am going a little higher in the horizon, and I am just establishing a line that I want to make sure, you know, it's sort of the line here. And then I just want to lose it a little bit with the line of the cityscape. I just don't like that too much. So, and the photo is, all of this is so gray, so difficult to see. That's why I'm having difficulty, because I'm not very good at making things up. I usually have to see things and paint them. So I'm just making sort of another gray. Oh, this is too blue. Okay, so washing just slightly, I am gonna use the purple. So it's Alizarin crimson with that mix of the blue that we had before. Yes, I think that's a bit more gentle in terms of where is the buildings, where are the buildings, and where is the water. Yeah, and the buildings, I like to put them like vertical, and then for the water, it's horizontal strokes. Probably making a little line later on light color in the water might be good. All right, so I said I wanted to do just a little bit more with the dark colors. Cleaning your brush. On these particular shaded areas, it's the original wash. So let's go for the ultramarine blue and alizarin crimson. It is a transparent color, but because we're going to be painting on top of the transparent color, it's now going to look a little less transparent. And I'm just mixing slightly more blue. And the jetty is coming like on this area. So usually under the jetty, and it had like a curve, but I don't want to go too much on the details of that curve in there. Okay, so just go down with the reflections in the water and horizontal for the sensation of the water. Okay, so down for reflections, and then maybe just a little bit of some nondescript darker colors in here, because I think otherwise that line of the jetty is weird. But if you see that just by brushing slightly this darker color, I hope you see that, it's giving a bit more of volume to those trees. I don't want the trees to be to steal our attention from the sky and the sunrise. By darkening this, I think this is becoming slightly more logical to our eyes. So now with the same dark color, the water had some reflections. I think it's probably too dark, although that's the way that I'm seeing it in the photo. So let's see if I don't miss too much. If I do, it's a very light touch that I'm doing, and I can always change it, and I can always go on top with a lighter color for the water. So for the water, we are going to use the light color that we had. It has yellow, the Indian yellow, alizarin crimson, and white, titanium white. because I see some of these reflections of the water, and then probably the waves, the shadow of the waves, but I don't think it actually worked very well. So I am just going to establish this sort of lighter brushing it. I hope you can see well. There's now light from my window coming in, and I apologize for that. I hope you enjoyed this demo, and I hope you get inspired and paint your own sunrise or sunset. This was a bit too white, so I'm just establishing again some of that rosy pinkish color in here. So even though acrylics dry darker, you can see that sometimes when I added some whiter areas, they were too white in my opinion. So we're mixing now the rosy color with the pinkish color and with the one that had a bit more of the Indian yellow in there to give the impression of these reflections in the water. And I'm just trying to cover those dark marks, even though I do see them. I didn't like them. That's what happens. Sometimes you can actually change the way that your photos look like. I mean, all the time you can change whenever. So let's just make some marks in here of water coming in here. And I'm using the same sort of orangey color. You can see on top of the one that's pinkier is just building the layers and layers of these water reflections. Actually, these are not the reflections. This is the water in between the reflections, the running water of the North Atlantic. Okay. And wow, I can see that in your the video it's very light. I mean, all the light is coming now through, and I will post this video with the photo that I take once I don't have that much glare from the sunlight. Anyway, you can see every one of my brush strokes. What you don't see is my color combinations. I'm making a little bit of a darker, I'm gonna see if this works better. Yes, a little bit of a darker color here for some of these areas. And you can see I'm using the brush horizontal, and sometimes I use it like a pointy area in the back where you don't want too much definition. And in here, this was definitely very light. So, but I don't want to paint it as light as I had it original. So anyway, this is making waves just by adding a slightly darker color, and you can see it's wiggly. Don't be too specific. This is what we call the dry brushing. So in some of these areas you can see through, and in some other areas it's just the water that's coming in here, and that gives more of the impression of waves. And there was definitely this area of blue. So I'm just getting a little bit more of the white area here and just brushing on top. So this is all, you know, layers covering what is underneath, but it's still showing through. That's the advantage of painting in layers. You still see through, and it's good to have, you know, the more pinkish, more yellowish colors, and sometimes just a slight change in this hue, which is going from reddish to yellow, gives the impression of movement. And sometimes is a little bit of a change in the brightness, making it a little darker, close to the one that's lighter one. Though all of those things can give the very nice impressions in your painting of movement, of light, of volume that we need. So I'm just adding some touches of very light color. It's white on top of what I had, and as you can see, the brush, I haven't cleaned the brush, but there was definitely an area of lighter reflections in here. And you know, just a very slight, very, very mild brushing on top. It was definitely showing in some of these areas. And definitely on top of this blue, there was this was looking bluer, but not completely clean blue. And what I'm doing now is just going over some of these. I like the effect of some of these, and you can see moving the brush around helps create some of the idea of waves, or you know, the impression of waves. And in some areas it's good to leave the lighter ones with the darker ones. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's been an hour that I spent with you. It's a 9 by 12 inch, and it's I wanted to paint a dramatic sky. That's the sunrise, and those are the reflections of the sun on the sky. And it's, you know, 3 or 4 elements of nature with a cityscape and the water. Have fun, enjoy, and enjoy your painting. Thank you very much. I hope that you subscribe to my channel and watch some other of my paintings. Again, my palette is described. It's Indian yellow, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, and for the opaque colors, for some more of a accent color, is cadmium yellow medium, cadmium red medium, and viridian green. Thank you very much. Enjoy.